What you will see now is the newest chapter of Dragon Ball Hakai. But first, leave a like and help this video reach here on the platform and help more people get to know Dragon Ball Hakai. And also subscribe to the channel to find out absolutely everything about Dragon Ball Hakai and Dragon Ball in general. Now, stick with the chapter. Previously on Dragon Ball Hakai, after meeting his energy of destruction, which he discovers is called Kakarot, Goku unexpectedly asks Vados to help him go back in time. On Earth, after receiving Beerus' warning about the danger involving the celestial mages, the planet's warriors prepare as best they can for the fights to come. How will our heroes strengthen themselves and prepare for the fights of the future? Find out now.
Hakai.
Chapter 32, Red Ribbon's Secret Plan. Across all universes, gods and mortals train to face the 5 great celestial mages, while on Earth the police confront another enemy. The West City Police, after many investigations, managed to discover that the Red Ribbon Force was being recreated. The secret base where their illegal activities were being carried out was found, so the police began the final operation. Taking advantage of the fact that the police are busy exchanging fire at his soldiers, Magenta prepares to flee. He runs away alongside Carmine and another soldier. Desperate and frustrated, Carmine complains, "Damn, how did those damn cops find us? Now all our work goes down the drain." They're heading towards an aircraft carrier, planning to escape by air. Despite the situation, Magenta remains determined and responds to Carmine, "It doesn't matter. I will raise Red Ribbon again, whatever the cost." However, one person stands in the way between them and their escape. "Nah, you won't escape." The hero who just did this is Krillin, who's very determined not to let them pass. Without mercy, Magenta shouts the orders to his subordinates, telling them to shoot to kill. They obey and point their weapons at Krillin, but the law enforcement agent smiles calm and confident. After a while, everything seemed to be over. Magenta, Carmine, and the soldier appeared utterly defeated, while Krillin's boss went to talk to him. Commander Nuts praises Krillin, saying the following, "Congratulations, Officer Krillin. If it weren't for all your efforts, we would have never discovered their secret base. From what little we've been able to find out, they were working with dangerous technology here, so you may have saved a lot of lives." Krillin is a little shy with his boss's flattery and thanks her. "Thank you, Commander, but I only did my job." The commander then decides to give him a reward. "I think after working so much overtime, you can take today and tomorrow off. Don't worry, if we find anything important, I'll let you know." Krillin is happy with this news and thanks the commander. Guys, before continuing with this chapter, I think it's very important for me to clarify this scene. A lot of people might be confused by what just happened here. We know that in Dragon Ball Super, the Red Ribbon base was defeated by the Union of the Z warriors, especially Gohan and Piccolo, but here in Dragon Ball Hakai, things happened in a very different way. Why? Well, anyone who follows Dragon Ball Hakai knows that this story takes place after the Moro arc, but the story narrates some later events of Dragon Ball Super in an alternative way. For example, Granola already appeared in Dragon Ball Hakai. However, a different context was created, where the plot of the Granola arc ended up not happening because the Dragon Ball stopped working. With the events of the superhero arc, things are also different. In this alternative version created in Dragon Ball Hakai, the West City Police managed to find Red Ribbon's secret base much earlier than in Dragon Ball Super, not giving Red Ribbon time to create the new androids. Since in the original story, the police were already investigating Red Ribbon before the events of the superhero arc, I think it's not reasonable to think that they could discover the base earlier. And as Krillin is a very powerful Earthling, the new Red Ribbon would certainly not be able to defeat him without the androids. Anyway, I thought it was important to clarify this so you don't get confused. Now let's continue with the chapter. Despite having received time off, Krillin did not use his free time to rest, but rather to train with his wife, Android 18. Krillin is not getting the best of his training. On the contrary, he's being massacred by 18's blows, who attacks him with great speed and intensity. 18 lands a sequence of punches on her husband, and then finishes with a kick that knocks him away, sending Krillin from the sky over the sea to the ground of the islet where Kame House is located. Krillin's head hurts, and while rubbing his bald head, he complains to his wife, "Wow, 18, don't you think you're getting too hard on me?" She returns to the island while responding, "If I go easy on you, you won't be able to evolve, and you'll be an easy target for your enemy. You need to try harder, Krillin." 18 looks at another person there who is Master Roshi. She then says to Krillin, "Even that old pervert is trying to improve. I've lost count of how many hours he's been standing there, meditating, completely focused, and without getting distracted by stupid things." In fact, Master Roshi seems completely immersed in his meditation training, oblivious to the things of the outside world. world, like a true sage. Krillin is a little sad and frustrated with the scolding he just got and says, "Okay, I get it. I'm a total failure. Among all the others, I must be the only one who's barely progressing." 18 realizes that she hurt his feelings, and then tries to console her husband. "It's not like that either. It may not seem like it, but you are improving. With a more affectionate posture now." She asks to see Krillin's head. "Let me see if it hurt too much." But it's not just Krillin's training that 18 is making difficult. When she bends over to see Krillin, she leaves a certain part of her body exposed, and her feminine attributes draw someone else's attention. Master Roshi, who was meditating fully like a true hermit, suddenly opens his eyes wide, hallucinating, but he fights his carnal desires and closes his eyes again. Sweat involuntarily runs down the old master's bald head, and a trickle of blood runs down from his nose. Who's suffering more from the training, him or Krillin? Suddenly, the communicator on Krillin's arm beeps. He answers promptly and sees that it's Commander Nuts. Commander Nuts says, "Officer Krillin, I know I gave you the rest of the day off. Sorry to bother you, but we discovered something important in the Red Ribbon archives, and I thought you might like to know." But Krillin doesn't mind the interruption. "No problem, Commander." Android 18 doesn't like what's happening at all, and watches a little intrigued. Commander Nuts begins to report something very important to him. We find out that Magenta found a very old secret laboratory of Dr. Gero. According to his investigation files, very powerful weapons were being built in this laboratory. Krillin is intrigued by what he just heard, surprised that there is another Dr. Gero's laboratory, but then says to the commander, "Commander Nuts, going to this laboratory could be dangerous, so I'll investigate alone. Please give me the location and the information you got." Commander Nuts, certainly trusting Krillin a lot, doesn't question him. She just agrees. When Commander Nuts hangs up, Android 18, sensing danger, asks Krillin, "Krillin, who is this woman, and where are you going?" Krillin is a little surprised by her questions. "Woman? Oh, well, it was Commander Nuts, my superior." Android 18, knowing that her husband is an irresistible alpha male and that there is another woman in the area, says, "That's weird. I'm going too." But Krillin, instead of getting angry, happily agrees. Okay. In fact, you can be quite useful." With instructions given by Commander Nuts, Krillin and 18 arrive at Dr. Gero's secret laboratory. This laboratory operated independently of the one that was destroyed in the past, relying on an even more powerful energy generator. After they destroy the lab door, Krillin enters. He looks around with curiosity and amazement. Who would imagine Dr. Gero had a place like this hidden away? 18, equally impressed, agrees. That old man was really full of surprises. They take a look at a giant computer in the center of the laboratory. Krillin, approaching to analyze the computer, deduces, "I'm sure there is important information on that computer." He starts messing around with the computer, looking for information. As he does this, 18 asks, "How did you guys find out about this place?" He explains, "It was all in Magenta's files stored at the secret base that we captured. Magenta's mother is a former Red Ribbon soldier named Colonel Violet. It seems that she is a great spy and has investigated all of the organization's old projects for many years, including everything done by Dr. Gero. Recently, Colonel Violet found out about this place, but before Magenta and his minions could get here, we arrested them." Suddenly, strange codes began to appear on the computer screen, and seeing this, Krillin becomes very frustrated. "Damn, it looks like the files in the computer are encrypted. I won't be able to access it." 18 suggests, "We have to call someone who understands technology to solve this." But Krillin smiles and says, "We already have that person." Before continuing, there is another very important thing that I need to clarify here. For those of you who don't know, Colonel Violet is a very old Dragon Ball character who appeared in the Red Ribbon Saga, one of the first sagas of the original Dragon Ball. Colonel Violet was left out of the story for a long time, especially in the manga, where she had very little participation. But in the movie Dragon Ball Super Superhero, she was seen in a photo in Magenta's office next to a photo of Commander Red, his father. As a result, a theory was created that Colonel Violet is someone very important to Magenta, and there is a very high chance that she is his mother. In the Dragon Ball Super manga, the relationship between the two was not confirmed, as she did not even appear. However, in Dragon Ball Hakai, Colonel Violet is actually Magenta's mother, and she appears to still be in action, working as some kind of spy. With that clarified, now let's continue. After a while, another person arrives in the secret laboratory. This person is BULMA, who is working on the computer. Krillin is a little embarrassed, apologizes to her. "Sorry to bother you, BULMA." But BULMA seems happy to help. "It's okay, Krillin. After all, what would all of you do without me?" But even Bulma doesn't seem to be having an easy time with that problem. She comments, "Besides, this is really difficult. Not just anyone could decrypt it, but we're talking about one of the most brilliant minds in Dragon Ball." Bulma manages to decrypt the computer, and she finishes the job with a click on the keyboard. A trapdoor is automatically opened, and 3 capsules come out of the trapdoor. On these capsules are numbers 13, 14, and 15. When she sees this, number 18 is shocked. "No way! Are those androids 13, 14, and 15? Krillin doesn't know what she's talking about and asks who these guys are. 18 looks at him a little tensely and then starts to say, "Before building 19, 17, 16, and me, Dr. Gero built other androids that he considered failures. Among them were 13, 14, and 15. I thought he discarded and destroyed them all, but it seems not." Krillin asks, "Why did he consider these androids a failure?" She explains to him. Among the androids that Dr. Gero built, most consisted of 2 types of infinite energy androids and absorption types androids. Between these 2 types, the ones with infinite energy were much stronger. Realizing the potential of this type of android, Dr. Gero focused many efforts on building them. However, there was a big problem, which was the difficulty of controlling them. Dr. Gero built many models of infinite energy, but was unable to control them all. He found that as he reduced the android's powers, the mental instability was less, but still he was never able to control us. I was the last model of the infinite energy type that was created, therefore the weakest, but not even me, Dr. Gero was able to control. That's why the next model he built was Android 19, which was of the absorption type, an inferior and weaker technology, but easier to control. After hearing all this, Krillin comments, "Now I understand. That's why your power declined as production went on, right? 16 was superior to 17, 17 was stronger than you, and you are stronger than 19. In common logic, more recently created androids should be more powerful, but with Dr. Gero's creations, it was the opposite. Now I understand why." 18 continued. Androids 13, 14, and 15 were certainly extremely powerful, much more than 16. However, they were the most unstable among us. I thought at the time that Dr. Gero had destroyed them, but they are here. Why? Bulma, who until now was looking at the computer, had an answer. "I already understand everything. This is not an ordinary computer. Here is a very advanced artificial intelligence that was finalizing these androids. It seems that Dr. Gero tasked this computer with solving the mental instability problem you just mentioned. Since Dr. Gero died, he couldn't improve the computer, so it would take years for it to be finished." At that moment, she has an idea and then says, "Hey, we could use these machines to help if Earth is really attacked by these new enemies. Perhaps with Capsule Corporation's current technology, we can improve these projects, making these androids stronger and less unstable." But Bulma is a little discouraged and says, "The problem is that creating machines of this type is not my specialty." But again, she has an idea and asks Krillin, "Hey Krillin, you said the new red ribbon was after Dr. Gero's projects, right? How did they plan to develop his old projects?" Krillin responds, "My commander said that they were investigating a man who is Dr. Gero's grandson, and according to their files, this man is even more genius than his grandfather." When she hears this, Bulma already knows what to do. West City, Cricket District. Someone is leaving a place called Mammal Market. This person has a packet of cookies in his hand, and he's already sending a cookie into his mouth. Suddenly, he sneezes. "Oh man, did I catch a cold?" Dr. Hedo wonders, a little worried. Krillin discovers that Red Ribbon was planning to resume Dr. Gero's old projects, which according to number 18 were much more powerful than her, 16 and 17. Will Dr. Gero's creations finally be able to be used for good with the help of Dr. Hedo? What about Goku and the others? What will they do to become stronger? Find out in the next chapters of Dragon Ball Hakai. And that was chapter 32 of Dragon Ball Hakai, guys. But before I end this video, there is one very important thing I need to talk about. But before I speak, I want to remind you that for Dragon Ball Hakai to continue, we really need you to help us. If we don't have considerable support from you from now on, it's very likely that we will need to stop the story again. If you are a fan of Dragon Ball Hakai and don't want to see the stream die, please consider supporting us through our Patreon. The link will be in the video description. And if you still can't support us on Patreon, support us with a super thanks, so that you can contribute with a lower amount and it will still help us a lot. Dragon Ball Hakai needs you guys, so help us continue on this journey. And also support us by liking this video so it has a greater reach here on the platform. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything about Dragon Ball Hakai, and share this video so your friends can also learn about this story. Well, in this chapter we had a very curious revelation about how Dragon Ball Z's androids worked. The explanation given by Dragon Ball Hakai, despite not having been directly given officially, is an explanation that has official information. One thing that always made me curious was why the power level of the androids in Dragon Ball Z was decreasing. In other words, whenever a new android was created, it was weaker than the previous one. In DBZ, Android 16 was stronger than 17, who was stronger than 18, who was stronger than 19. In common logic, it should be the other way around. 19 should be better than 18, which should be better than 17, and so on. Looking at some official information and also rereading some parts of the Dragon Ball manga, we were able to discover the explanation for this. This explanation is not given directly, but when we look at some things that are said, there is no way to conclude anything else. The truth is that between the two types of androids created by Dr. Gero, the absorption type androids and the infinite energy type androids, those of the infinite energy type were much stronger and more advanced. This is obvious when we look at the difference in power between Android 20 and 19 compared to 18 and 17, for example. The problem is that it seems that the more power an android has, the more difficult it was for Dr. Gero to have control over that android. So whenever he made an android and realized he couldn't control it, he created another, weaker android. He did this repeatedly until he finally gave up and decided to go for an absorption type model, which was Android 19. In the Dragon Ball manga, it's mentioned that he created other androids before 16, but discarded them. In Dragon Ball Hakai, the surprise is that he didn't actually destroy these androids. He just placed them in another laboratory where an advanced computer would work on fixing their problems. This idea is similar to what was used in one of the Dragon Ball Z movies. Although androids 13, 14, and 15 did not appear in the canonical story of Dragon Ball, they really existed, and these androids prior to 16 are even mentioned in the manga. This means that Dr. Gero created, for example, Android 13, who was very powerful, but seeing that he wouldn't be able to control Android 13, he created Android 14, which was weaker, but he also couldn't control him, and then he created 15, 16, and so on. In the end, not even 18, which was the weakest, Dr. Gero could control, and so he stopped creating infinite energy models and created Android 19. Interestingly, Dr. Gero still seemed willing to use androids 17 and 18, and to prevent them from rebelling, he created in them a mechanism that could kill them and that he could activate through the remote control. In the case of Android 16, he created an extremely powerful bomb, which according to 16 could even kill Cell. It was never explained exactly why the more powerful androids were more difficult to control. Perhaps the excess power in their bodies disrupted the mechanisms related to obedience. But the curious thing is that despite acting on their own, the androids remained faithful to their goal of killing Goku. And among all of them, the one who remained most faithful to this was Android 16, who should be the least controllable of them all. Anyway, Dragon Ball has these logics that we end up not understanding. Overall, this is the explanation for why the androids created by Dr. Gero have a confusing power scale. We thought this was a cool curiosity, so we brought you some explanation about it in Dragon Ball Hakai. But beyond that, this chapter opened up many interesting possibilities for us in the plot of Dragon Ball Hakai. To begin with, it seems that we will have androids 13, 14, and 15 in the story, more non-canonical characters from the franchise that will be remade, like Pikkon and Cooler. We will also have Dr. Hito participating in the story, who could end up having a very relevant participation, perhaps even more than the participation he had in the superhero arc. With Dr. Hito in the story, we might be able to see the Gamma's androids, and who knows, even Cell Max. But of course, this version of Cell Max could be different from what we saw in the superhero arc. From what BULMA said in this chapter, she intends to give the Capsule Corporation resources to improve these androids, and she can perfectly give these resources to create new androids too. Capsule Corporation is even richer than Red Pharmaceuticals, which means that the androids we saw in the superhero arc could be even more powerful than Dragon Ball Hakai. Another thing we saw is that Earth's warriors are also training, like Krillin, 18, and Master Roshi. Before, we also saw that Gohan and Piccolo were taking their training very seriously, and besides them, the other warriors from Earth are certainly also training hard, and perhaps they will appear in future chapters. But we also haven't forgotten Goku, who in the last chapter went through that encounter with his energy of destruction, and suddenly told Vados that he wants to travel through time. Goku did not appear in chapter 32, but it is certain that he will appear in the next chapter, so we will be able to see more of his journey. In addition to Goku, we also have have to know what will happen to Vegeta, who has some idea of training, but we still don't know what it is. Other characters that we also need to know what happened are Gohan and Piccolo, who were mysteriously called by Pikkon. Anyway, Dragon Ball Hakai opened up multiple paths for our characters to evolve, and you can be sure that they will all be very well worked on in this story. Now, I would like you to comment on what you think will happen on Earth. Will Dr. Hito join the good team or not? And what kind of creations and improvements could he make? About Goku, how do you think he will be able to travel through time? And why does he want to do it so much? What do you think Vegeta's idea of training is? And what do you think Pikkon wanted with Gohan and Piccolo? Comment your theories and also any doubts, questions, and criticisms you have about the story so we can answer them in the next videos. If you want to read all the chapters of Dragon Ball Hakai, visit our website dbhakai.com. There you will have access to all the chapters of this story. Also, don't forget to visit our Patreon to help us keep the story alive, or help us by sending a super thanks. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can reach 200,000 subscribers. Until next time, goodbye.